Nvidia's new monster flagship GPU pricing gets listed. It's bonkers. We get full specs and release date for the 5060 Ti and a 5080 Super? Welcome everyone to Gamer Melt. Before I get to the news, a couple weeks ago I posted this Twitter poll, so I thought I'd quickly go over it. As you can see, I asked, what type of GPU have you purchased recently? And of course, as you would expect, most people said they didn't buy one. Now, this could just be people who weren't even looking for one, or some people who were looking but weren't able to get it. Either way, the GPUs with the most response was the RX 9000 series, with a whopping 27.3%, while Nvidia's RTX 5000 just got 7.9%, and of course, Intel's Arc GPUs only received 2.3%. Now, this doesn't exactly give us too much information, though there was another poll that seemed to show similar results. Still, this doesn't account for bias, and it could just be that AMD had more GPUs. In fact, I would argue that's likely one thing that the polls have shown. AMD definitely released a ton of cards. Either way, make sure you follow me on Twitter or X for polls like this. I'll have that link in the description below. Now, moving on to the first story, as many of you know, Nvidia recently announced their RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell GPU, and it's one beast of a card. Not only does it have more cores than the 5090, but it's not a blower GPU, so Nvidia was able to push this bad boy all the way to 600 watts. In fact, I would say that this is the closest we've gotten to a Titan card in years. With that said, like I mentioned during the release, it's not going to be cheap. And we now have the first retail listing in the US for some of Nvidia's upcoming Pro cards, including the 6000 card. But I'll go ahead and start with the Pro 2000 GPU. As you can see right here, this one is actually not all that bad. It's $700, while it probably is pretty bad because this is just an 8GB GPU and we don't really have any other specs at the moment, at least for this one, but I would assume that it's not going to be that great, at least not for $700. Then moving up to the Pro 4000 card, this one is right at $1,500 and you can actually see that as far as CUDA cores, we're looking at the exact same amount as the 5070 Ti, and good news, it comes with 24GB of GDDR7 with ECC, but it's probably not going to get anywhere near the performance of the 5070 Ti because the total board power is just 140 watts, and that's because this is a blower card, specifically a very slim blower card. Next, moving on, we have the RTX Pro 4500. This one is a whopping $2,500, which it has 32GB of GDDR7, but as far as core count, it has, I believe, a little bit less than the RTX 5080, but still, it only comes with a 200 watt TGP, so it's definitely not going to pump out a ton of performance. Then we have the Pro 5000, which is really getting up there at $4,500 or right at $4,600 once you include tax, probably even more than that, since we're talking $4,000. But finally, we have the RTX Pro 6000, and the cheapest version of this that you can get is a whopping $8,400. Definitely not a GPU you want to get for gaming, especially because so far we've only really seen with gaming performance. Once again, though, this could just be purely because of a driver issue or just, early drivers in general. But regardless, we only saw at max, I think it was around 5% better performance. With that said, this wasn't an actual game. It was a synthetic benchmark, but still, it's not looking all that great, especially for this price. And next up for today, it looks like the full specs for Nvidia's upcoming RTX 5060 Ti just leaked out. As you can see right down here, this is a full breakdown of the specs, and starting with CUDA cores, we're looking at 4,608, which when we compare it to the 4060 Ti's 4,352, it's around 5.8% more cores.
Oh no!
For reference, the 5080 had, I believe it was around 10.8% more cores, and obviously that one wasn't very impressive at all, so this is looking even worse. With that said, the 5070, I believe it was something like 4.8% more cores versus the 4070, so that one was slightly worse, but this really isn't looking much better. Now, moving on to the clocks, we're looking at 2407 MHz base clock and 2572 MHz boost clock. And compared to the 4060 Ti, it's slightly more, not even 100 MHz more than the 4060 Ti, and even less of a boost when we look at boost clock over the 4060 Ti at 2572 versus 2535. So yeah, I definitely would not expect much of a performance increase here, but I will at least say that when it comes to memory, yes, they are once again offering either an 8 or 16 gigabyte model. This one, of course, coming with GDDR7, and that actually means that it does have faster memory. These are clocked at 28 gigabits per second versus 18 gigabits per second, which makes for a memory bandwidth of a whopping 448 gigabytes per second versus 288 gigabytes per second with the 4060 Ti. With that said, I guess memory as well as clocks and things like that have also boosted the TGP, so it now pulls 180 watts versus 165 watts. Ultimately, I would really just say that once again, it is seriously looking like Nvidia is almost entirely relying on DLSS4, specifically that multi-frame generation boost, to try to make it worth these new GPUs. I mean, it really isn't all that impressive. With that said, if you are still interested in picking one of these up, we also now have the announcement date as well as the actual on-shelf date coming from video cards. You can see right here, this one was apparently given to them via some board partners who was given the information from Nvidia. Either way, as you can see, according to this, the actual product announcement is set to come April 15th for the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte as well as 8 gigabyte and the regular 5060. Then the review embargo and on-shelf date, well, the review embargo for the 16 gigabyte model comes April 16th. Then the on-shelf date comes for both the 16 gigabyte and 8 gigabyte models, once again, April 16th, meaning the reviews are dropping the same day that they go on sale. You know, I really don't like this because it does not give anyone, especially given how these cards have been going out of stock so quickly, it gives basically no one any time to actually decide if they want to buy it or not. Then we have the 5060, which is of course an 8 gigabyte card set for on-shelf date in May. And lastly for today, it looks like Nvidia could be set to release an RTX 5080 Super or 5080 Ti, something along those lines. Because as you can see right down here, this was recently found in a compatibility list for the MAG X870 Tomahawk Wi-Fi from MSI. And as you can see, it lists the 4060, 7900 XTX, 7900 XT, 5090, 5080, but there's kind of an issue here because as you can see, it comes with 24 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory. That's odd. Now, you might quickly chalk this up to just a typo. I mean, obviously, this isn't that big of a deal. It's just within this compatibility list, someone made a mistake. And I was sort of thinking that as well, but here's the problem. There was actually a promotional video by MSI a little while back, and in it, they had a Vanguard RTX 5080, and look at that. It was actually printed on the box as 24 gigabytes of GDDR7. So yeah, we're talking two major mistakes here, and that video is still up. So the question becomes, what could this be? Well, I actually think that there's a couple possibilities that actually go with one another. First is that Nvidia initially gave them the wrong specs for the cards, went ahead and told them it's actually 24 gigabytes instead of 16 for the 5080, and then they changed it. But then the second option, which the reason I think it kind of goes with it, is that that really is what could have happened. But Why would they have said 24 gigabytes? And that's because there's probably a good chance that at least when they do release supercards, or maybe this could just be a 5080 Ti, but regardless, when they release an updated version to the 5080, or at least a better version, they could in fact be planning to release it with 24 gigabytes. Now, we don't know this for sure, but like I said, I mean, the evidence is definitely there. We're talking in more than one place. They actually, MSI lists 24 gigabytes of GDDR7 within a 5080. So let me know what you think here. Do you think this is potentially gonna go in an RTX 5080 Super or 5080 Ti? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. And as always, have a great day.